And there's kind of this myth in video games that it would, the industry could scale. And I don't know, how much you may have heard about it, but for 20 years, competitive video games has been in and out of the mainstream public. And like, it should be here. It's going to be the next thing. And it's taken
Yeah.
its time. And it's because there's this myth that like, because video games are software would scale them. But they can't. You need coaches, you need referees, you need
Mm.
admins, you need facility administrators, you name it. And so our thesis was that if we took all the store staff and instead of letting them go or furloughing them, we basically just took them and used them to program the digital operations for these camps, for these tournament operations, that we could offer a higher quality product. And that's exactly what we did. And so we were able to turn on this programming on our digital platform. If you go to nerdstreet.com right now, you'll find a whole assortment of competitive opportunities, coaching, camps, tournaments that are all curated in our gateway and produced by our staff, with a high quality integrity level that, parents can trust as a safe, productive environment. And so, that allowed us to keep the stores off, keep that low cost, not, kind of just pause as much as it, broke our hearts to see that there's kids in school districts all across the country that don't even have internet access to do remote
Yeah.
learning, let alone esports. We just, focused on what we could do, and we built our platform thanks to some relationships with publishers like Riot and professional teams. We got this massive exposure. We took off, suddenly there's a ton of people coming and playing on our platform. And at that time we said, why don't we, raise capital to continue building, because we know this is going to come back, and like the more we keep building, the better we're going to be in a situation to take advantage of that. And I pitched a lot of firms. I pitched a lot of people, got a lot of no's. Everybody was scared. Everybody was panicked. Probably the worst possible time to raise venture capital for a live events business was last August, and it was pretty miserable. And so then I'm listening to, another podcast, and I hear this guy talking with a vision I really aligned with. His name's Joe Lonsdale, and he runs 8VC as well as, one of the early backers of Palantir. And I was just so impressed with him. I wrote him a letter just to say like, hey, I really appreciate what you had to say, which is a habit I have of sending my people who inspire me a letter. And so I wrote him, and whatever. A couple weeks later, I realized, wait, Joe talks to Founders Fund. Founders Fund has always been like kind of my number one, like, how I looked at what Peter Thiel did with PayPal and with Facebook, and then what, Brian came in and has done recently with everything from, Airbnb to Palantir and more. I really just looked up to them, and they were kind of the top of the chart. I said, all right, I'll send Joe an email. So I emailed Joe. I said, I think my exact quote was, I'm nothing if not ambitious, but would you mind introducing me to Founders Fund?
Yeah.
And he goes, sure. Here's Brian and Trey Stevens at the time, and they jump on a call with me. And Brian, I at the time hadn't realized had this background in video games, and he's just totally understood what we were saying. He was like, I get it. This makes a lot of sense. What you guys are doing, seems to be the fix for that problem. Like, why hasn't this taken off in 20 years? This didn't exist. And now this can be, the real amplification point for the industry. And so we did, I would have used the term bridge, but then somebody told me, bridge means debt, and it wasn't a debt deal. It was just a, kind of mid-range between our A and Series B round that we did to bring him on, give us enough capital to kind of continue our growth through the pandemic. And now, we'll get back to raising a Series B pretty shortly here, probably in the summer as we continue, our growth. The acceleration we've seen, at each step of the way has just kind of continued to validate everything from, unit economics to consumer market fit. In 2019, I think, or in 2020, I think we had 2,900% growth in our viewership on our channel, our Twitch channel, where we broadcast these events. And then in January and February of this year, we surpassed the whole year of last year. And so, the growth has only continued to accelerate. We've now passed 200, I think 250,000 followers on Twitch. And, it really is starting to accelerate because we're providing, the access point that helps kind of grow all of the different pieces of the ecosystem here.